people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
De la noche, Stephanie Piñeiro.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that on December 2nd, Puerto Rico's own unbeaten up-and-comer, Stephanie Piñeiro, will be returning to action. I know that she had hopes of qualifying for the next Olympics, but I believe she was eliminated. Thus, she will resume her professional boxing career without those distractions. In truth, I think Stephanie has all the makings of a great professional. Even if she didn't achieve her goal in the amateurs, not every amateur made a great pro.
But I believe that Stephanie can.
Sporting a professional record of 5 wins with no losses, no draws, 2 recorded knockouts. Having debuted as a professional back in 2019, she's had a stop and start professional career because she's been bouncing back and forth between the amateurs and the pros, dividing her attention. She's not going to be going to Paris, so I can only assume she's going to go all in her professional boxing career. It will have her undivided attention moving forward. She doesn't look it, but she's 33 years old, fighting out of the southpaw stance.
De Bayamón, Puerto Rico.
Very good physical dimensions for these weights. Statuesque, standing in at about 5'9", campaigning anywhere in between welterweight or junior middle. I could see Stephanie winning a title in either of those divisions. At 147 pounds, you've got Natasha Jonas holding the IBF, Sandy Ryan holding the WBO, and America's own Jessica McCaskill holding both the WBA and WBC titles. That's at 147. At 154, you've got Terry Harper holding the WBA, Femke Hermans holding the IBF. The upcoming Henna Rankin versus Emma Kozin fight, that's supposed to be for the WBC, and the WBO is currently vacant. It was on the line in the Harper versus Breakus fight, but that fight was scored a draw, so nobody won it. As it pertains to Stephanie Piñeiro, who debuted as a professional in September of 2019, as stated, she's had a stop-and-start kind of career. She did see action 2 times this one, 2 times this year.
Earlier this year against Argentina's own Yamila Reynoso, very seasoned journeywoman, and more recently against Miranda Barber.
Almost immediately you notice the physically imposing size of Stephanie Piñeiro as she pumps out that jab and controls the range with it, setting up the backhand, the left hand, as she fights out of the southpaw stance.
Even though she's very big for the weight, very tall, lots of height, lots of length, she's athletic, she's fast on her feet, and she's got fast hands.
And that's saying that Stephanie isn't relying on size and size alone to win these fights, even if she does have a bit of size on her side. She knows how to use it, knows how to beat those feet and pump out that jab to manage the distance, control the real estate, the space at which a fight is being fought, fighting coming forwards or moving backwards or moving lateral. She's best described as a boxer puncher.
She's got power and she's got spite. She's got a mean spirit, a mean streak.
Though she isn't limited to just coming forward, throwing punches and bunches the way a pressure fighter would, and she's not limited to moving backwards or lateral on the defensive the way a pure boxer would. She's smack dab in the middle. She is that textbook boxer puncher that uses the boxing to implement the punching, the hard punches. She will be in action in early December against an opponent that has yet to be announced. The fight itself is not yet registered on BoxRec, so we don't know who she's going to be fighting, though at 5-0, I can only imagine it's going to be another bring-along fight, another developmental fight, and very soon, as early as next year, perhaps Stephanie can get herself into world title contention. There are enough titles and enough champions between 147 and 154 to go around. And I would give Stephanie decent odds against any of those fighters and those champions because she's got the size, the power, and the pedigree. And she's Puerto Rican.
I fucking love Puerto Ricans. Ooh, epa.
You figure that some of the more experienced fighters and champions at 147, like Natasha Jonas, who's in her late 30s, and Jessica McCaskill, who's still a unified champion, they're not going to be around forever.
Some point they're going to call it a career, vacate those titles, and that creates opportunities. Opportunities for a fighter like Stephanie Piñeiro,
who is going to be in action in early December. Keep your eyes peeled for the ring return of Stephanie Piñeiro, La Medicina. In men's heavyweight news, Tyson Fury, ahead of this weekend's circus fight, vows not to make the same mistake that Joshua did with Ruiz. The glaring difference being that Andy Ruiz is a boxer, a skilled boxer with some amateur experience and pro experience, whereas Francis Ngannou has none of that. Fury, he is still taking him very, very seriously, despite already finalizing a deal for an undisputed fight with Alexander Usyk in the near future. I am not looking past Ngannou, Fury said. I don't look ahead to other fights or get involved in boxing politics. When you count your chickens before they've hatched, you usually come unstuck. I remember a few years ago when Anthony Joshua was in New York to box a little-known guy called Andy Ruiz, but all he could talk about was fighting Deontay Wilder. He didn't concentrate on the little fat fella in front of him, and he ended up getting wiped out. I don't do stuff like that.
You're right. What you do is take breaks from fighting real fighters, real boxers, I should say, and boxing guys that never boxed before.
It doesn't get said enough that Andy Ruiz was a late replacement for Jarrell Miller, and even if Anthony Joshua in that moment looked past him, he was certainly a better choice than, say, Derek Chisora, who Tyson Fury fought for the third time late last year.
You beat him 2 times already.
And Francis Ngannou, this one, a guy who's never boxed before. This is Tyson Fury's idea of a keep busy fight. Fury who says, I don't care if Usyk is ringside, I am only looking forward to a good fight with Francis Ngannou. Whether it is easy or hard, I will be prepared for it, but I won't take my eye off of it, especially not for some middleweight guy when I have a giant in front of me.
They're doing everything they can to sell Francis Ngannou as a legitimate opponent and a legitimate challenge for Tyson Fury. But if you are, in fact, the best boxer in the world, why would a guy who's never boxed before be any form of a challenge?
It's one big psyop, one big mind job, the way they've been billing this thing. As Tyson Fury says, I knocked out Deontay Wilder. I'm the biggest puncher in heavyweight boxing, when it was never proven that Wilder was the biggest puncher in his era, or any era for that matter. If the average boxer spent 7 years fighting the fighters that Wilder was fighting, he'd be called the Bronze Bomber.
7 years of no hopers? Of course you're gonna have a hefty knockout ratio.
Tyson Fury says, I'm an aggressive knockout puncher now for sure. Fury said during a segment that was posted to TNT Sports Boxing YouTube channel Friday. People say that Deontay Wilder was the biggest puncher in heavyweight boxing, but I beat him. I knocked him out. So I take that crown. I'm the biggest puncher in heavyweight boxing, me. The 35-year-old Fury also assured Ngannou that he will come to fight Saturday night, not to box, and move his way to a decision win in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Straight out, Fury said, me and you in the middle. Listen, we'll have a fight. Don't worry about that. That's what we're getting paid to do anyway. Have a fight.
It's always been a baseless claim that Wilder is the biggest puncher in the history of the sport. Hell, it's a baseless claim in this era.
And many people that repeat it, hoping that others will believe it, hoping that it will catch. Tyson Fury continued, I told Deontay Wilder that I was gonna knock him out, didn't I? Fury said. In the second fight, I said I'm not gonna box, I'm gonna come straight at him. Frampton didn't believe me. Nobody did. I told him I'm gonna knock him out on the front foot, push him back, and knock him out. And I did.
Congratulations, but that doesn't make you the biggest puncher because it was never proven that he was the biggest puncher. If Anthony Joshua, hell, if Derek Chisora spent the first 7 years boxing the guys that Wilder was boxing, he'd be called the Bronze Bomber. He'd have that knockout ratio because all Wilder did for close to 10 years was fight no-hopers.
Can only be described as arrested development due to creative matchmaking, opportunistic matchmaking, because Wilder was an Olympian, he was a bronze medalist.
The hell did he spend 7 years fighting stiffs for?
Fury continued, saying that Usyk has to fight me in December. he doesn't have a choice, and Usyk didn't want one. It wasn't Usyk downing this fight or downing Undisputed.
It was Fury, and it was Fury who said in plain English that Undisputed was never his priority.
Fury who warns that Usyk has no way out of the situation and has to go forward with the fight. Their contest will also land in Saudi Arabia. Usyk's a sausage, Fury said to Sky Sports. I'm expecting it to take place in December. That's what I've been told. So I've got no reason to disbelieve it for sure. Usyk has to fight me in December. Doesn't have a choice. He's signed a contract. So if he doesn't, he's breached the contract and he gets sued. So doesn't really have a choice. But once again, he's not the guy who wanted one. You were. You were the one who said it's not your priority to fight an Undisputed, and it's never been your priority. It's always been someone else's dream.
Those were literally his words. Upon that fight's announcement, the Fury faction of fans felt vindicated that Fury would be fighting him after all, when Fury is the only reason people doubted the fight would happen, not Usyk.
Tyson Fury's the one who said he wanted to do more circus fights like the one he's about to have. He said after Ngannou, he would like to fight John Bones Jones. The way I think it happened, and what's really going on here, in spite of what he says, is that he may be on the hook to fight Usyk as part of this Ngannou situation. That the Saudis are willing to pay you to fight that guy, but they want you to fight Usyk too.
That's the expectation, not just from the Saudis, but from the boxing community in general, the boxing community at large, because what would people think and what would people say if Fury went his entire boxing career and didn't fight Usyk?
Usyk's not the one who said he'd rather fight MMA fighters than legitimate boxers. Usyk's not the one who said that Undisputed is not a priority to him. All of that came from Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury who says, I stood and traded with Wilder, with Vladimir, and I'll stand and trade with this little bitch.
He didn't stand and trade with Vladimir. He stayed on the outside.
That's literally the story of the fight. He stayed on the outside, moving and jabbing and feinting.
What it is that he knows most of his bandwagon fans here and now, they didn't actually see that fight, and anybody that did doesn't want to watch it again. So he's free to exaggerate, free to embellish. What happened?
Because he didn't trade with Vladimir Klitschko. Behave yourself, Fury jokingly told Queensberry Promotions' Dev Sani during their grand arrivals in Riyadh. I can stand and trade with anybody. I stood and traded with Wilder. I stood and traded with Vladimir. I'll stand and trade with this little bitch. Sani reminded Fury that Cameroon's Ngannou is in the Guinness Book of World Records for having thrown the hardest punch. Says who, Fury replied. Well, I've had a go at punching, so he ain't beat me. I have beat the actual biggest puncher in boxing and knocked him out. So yeah, until he beats me, he can only ever dream about that record. The biggest puncher.
The biggest puncher in combat sports is me.
I might give him a knockout, or I might give them a slick master boxing performance. Not let the ugly man touch me once, Fury said. That'd be unbelievable, wouldn't it? Come on. Start dancing, tripling the jab like Apollo Creed, sticking and moving, Rocky sticking and move. Bums brawl, don't they? You can go to a pub and see two big lumps knocking the stuffing out of each other, but what I can do is only a gift from God. Not very many people can do what I do. Twist and move, bend, triple the jab, follow 4 right hands behind him, slip and counter. With me, hands down. It's like a unique gift, and what it's like is like the opposite of what you said. You said you were gonna meet him in the middle of the ring and go at it. Give him a fight.
What Tyson Fury actually does is, once he gets that motor running, once he starts talking, he says so much fucking bullshit, fills the air with so much bullshit, you can't tell one thing from the other. Too hard to keep up.
He fancies himself a genius for it. He says, I just sometimes look in the mirror and think I'm an absolute genius.
No, what you are is a double talker. What you are is a contradictorian, a charlatan.
I just sometimes look in the mirror and think I'm an absolute genius. Fury playfully told Queensberry Promotions' Dev Sani and Andy Clark during their grand arrivals Tuesday night in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And when everybody thought it was all over for the Gypsy King, he comes and totally redeems himself and pulls this out of the hat. And here we are. What I really think is, the backlash that he's been experiencing all year, because he's been getting lambasted all year from all corners of the world by the boxing community at large, even in his own neck of the woods. People were growing tired of his shenanigans, the need and the desire to see him unify all the titles with Alexander Usyk. The outcry likely grew too loud for Fury to ignore, that it would be inexcusable to make time to box an MMA fighter who doesn't box but have no time for Usyk.
He fancies himself a genius for this. We didn't have to go through this dog and pony show when it was AJ's time, when it was AJ's turn to box that same Alexander Usyk 2 times. We didn't have to go through this with you.
With Fury, it's always a fucking circus, but he continued, it's like unbelievable, isn't it? Like just only 6 months ago, I didn't know if I was ever going to box again, and then here we go. Never mind, just doing a fight with Ngannou, I've got another big fight lined up and so much more to come. So many more big things in the hat, so Houdini! Fury's full focus now is on the hard-hitting Ngannou, who will make his pro boxing debut against an elite-level opponent who is listed as a 20-1 favorite. I'm not thinking about it, Fury said of the Usyk fight. Yeah, I'm just saying it's facts, but I'm not thinking about it. I've got this big sausage to deal with, and once I've grilled him up nice and good, then we'll go on to the next one. Irrespective of what you might think or what I might think about this weekend's circus fight, whether or not you're buying it, I personally, I'm not. I can't fork over my hard-earned dollars to watch Fury box a guy who doesn't actually know how to box. In any event, he has to make it out of the event unscathed. No cuts, bumps, bruises, scrapes, no sprains, no strains. Because what they're talking about is doing the Usyk fight before this year is out, in December. Though if he's even having it, I think that public pressure has a lot to do with that. I do that. If Fury had it his way, he wouldn't box this guy. The only reason he's going to is because the outcry grew too loud. No, you're not at liberty to do whatever you like. You may have wanted to spend what remains of your boxing career boxing guys who don't box, like Francis Ngannou, because you're the one who brought up John Bones Jones.
If he could, he would. But the reality is the boxing community, they'd never let him live it down. That if you went the rest of your boxing career and you didn't box this guy the same way that AJ did, with no fuss, no muss, no problem.
No production, no dog and pony show. You didn't have to twist AJ's arm to fight that guy, to fight him 2 times. But with you, the only reason you're doing it is because they'd never let you live it down. If you didn't, you can't run around calling yourself the greatest heavyweight of all times, greater than all the ones before you, if you left that unfinished business unfinished. There's nothing about Usyk's movements or Usyk's character that communicates an aversion to fighting Fury, but with Fury,
he's the one that's been putting down this fight. He's the one that's been saying Undisputed wasn't his priority. I still don't think it is now, but I think he feels he doesn't have much of a choice.
Win or lose, the money is there. So, if nothing else, that's the incentive. I don't think he wanted to do this, but I don't think he has much of a choice.